time is right now. This is Carolina Coral in the studio. I welcome the viewers of Freedom. Let's move on to the news. Last night, Ukraine endured yet another combined massive Russian attack on its energy infrastructure. The enemy struck with drones, cruise, and ballistic missiles, including anti-ship Kh-22s and Zircon hypersonic missiles. The Russian army shelled energy facilities in Kyiv and the region, as well as in 6 other regions. And right during the freezing weather. Temperatures are now reaching 20 degrees below zero. Watch the report to learn about the consequences of the attack.
Not a single window left intact. This is what the dormitory now looks like, where internally displaced people from Donetsk region live. People say the explosions in Dnipro started right after midnight and didn't stop for several hours.
It started at 1 in the morning. And by 4 in the morning, we finally went home. And then, bang, there was another explosion. Well, of course it was scary. The fear is indescribable. The bed itself was shaken. It was shaken.
The city was first attacked by strike drones. After that, more than a dozen ballistic missiles followed.
My husband said there was a huge glow in the sky, and then the window got blown out a little.
Tatiana moved to Dnipro from Selidov in the Donetsk region. She says she went through a similar shelling in her hometown 2 years ago. Back then, she was wounded. Today, she just got scared.
On February 8th, 2024, there were 8 missiles fired at our district. The houses were shaken and settling back down. The windows were blown out. And on September 5th, an aerial bomb completely destroyed my mother-in-law's house. Only the foundation was left.
Did she at least survive?
No, my mother-in-law and father-in-law died together. In
the dormitory, where for several years, dozens of people who once fled the war in Donetsk region have been living, now almost all the windows are shattered. No one was hurt. People made it to the shelter in time. As a result of the overnight attack in Dnipro, several private homes as well as critical and urban infrastructure facilities were also damaged. Energy workers, heating specialists, and utility crews are working to restore heat as quickly as possible to the homes that are currently without it. That's about 8,600 customers. Kharkiv in the region also came under massive combined attacks from the Russian occupiers. According to the prosecutor's office, the Russian army used attack drones, missiles, rocket artillery, and aerial bombs. 4 people were injured as a result of the attack. Explosions were heard for 6 hours. The Russians targeted residential buildings, stores, and cars.
It was really loud, coming from all directions. And it felt like, I don't know, it was the first time. We heard the sound. It was strange. It was like, well, I don't even know. There were a few of those bursts, and then the strike started. Yeah, the whole night. Like I said, we didn't sleep until 4 in the morning because, well, how could you sleep when it started booming from all sides?
We didn't sleep. It was loud. There was whistling, explosions, and flashes. My window faces that way, so I saw the flash. I don't know. The cars are all damaged, you see? You can see the blast wave here, too.
Local residents say the shelling was intense. After the strike, only the gas still worked in the house. Everything else was out.
It was loud. It was so loud. The walls were shaken. It exploded right under the building, right by the entrance. Private houses, they're firing cluster munitions. Good people, in quotes.
Now there are some utilities. What do you have at home?
Gas, surprisingly, we do. But there's no electricity or heat. Everything's cut.
The Russian army struck energy facilities. According to local authorities, one of the city's power plants has been almost completely destroyed.
The energy infrastructure that keeps our city running has been damaged.
The energy infrastructure that supplies our city has been damaged. They targeted it because it supports the life of the city of Kharkiv. They struck so there will be no heat, no electricity, no water. Right now, our energy workers and utility services are working around the clock to restore all services. Repair crews are on site, working as quickly as possible to fix the aftermath of the massive strike on the energy sector. About 60% of subscribers in the Kharkiv region have been left without electricity, and in Lazova, 16,000 people are without heating. Besides Kharkiv, we also had a strike on the city of Lazova. Of course, we are facing difficulties with heating and electricity supply. In the city of Kharkiv, in addition to the queues, there are also 10 emergency power outage schedules in effect. More than 100 points of invincibility are operating, as well as additional heating stations. Plus, we are setting up mobile heating stations. Another 33. Right now, we are pooling resources, bringing together all reserves that were in other regions. The invading army also attacked the Sumy region. Private homes, an educational institution, a store, and 2 apartment buildings were damaged. In one of them, a large fire broke out while rescuers were evacuating people from a smoke-filled entrance. The Russians launched a second strike. By sheer luck, no one was hurt. In the Venezia region, the strikes caused fires at critical infrastructure sites. About 50 settlements were left without power. In the Odessa region, more than 50,000 people are without electricity. Residential buildings and other civilian facilities have been damaged. In addition, in Zaporizhia, more than 12,000 customers lost power after Russian strikes. Power engineers are already working to restore electricity supply. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated that the enemy carried out targeted strikes specifically on energy and infrastructure facilities. Russia took advantage of the coldest days of this winter to once again commit terror against the civilian population. Natalia Husak, Natalia Belokudria, Andrei Domovoy, and Volodymyr Shtengelov for Freedom TV channel.
During last night's strike, Russia used 521 aerial attack assets. This was reported by the command of the Ukrainian Air Force. Among them were 4 Zircon missiles, 32 ballistic missiles, nearly 40 cruise missiles, and 450 attack drones. Ukrainian air defense forces shot down or suppressed with electronic warfare 38 missiles and 412 drones. Most of the weapons were aimed at Kyiv and the region, and at least 6 people were injured due to damage to residential buildings. Kristina Dombrovska will provide details about the situation in Kyiv.
The shelling of Kyiv and the region once again coincided with a period of severe frost in Ukraine. Despite temperatures dropping to -20, Russia launched another massive attack with missiles and drones. The air raid alert lasted for more than 7 hours. As a result of the strikes, there was damage in several districts of the capital. 5 people were injured, according to the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. In one of the districts, a 5-story residential building was destroyed. Windows and balconies were blown out, and a school was damaged. Many residents were saved thanks to a nearby shelter.
It was very hard. It was scary. There were bomb shelters. Bomb shelters? There were a lot of people there with kids. Honestly, it was warm in there. At first there was light, but then the power went out. And only recently did they turn the power back on, but there's still no heating. I was lying on the couch when I was thrown up by the blast. Something rattled from the impact.
Many Tikalins here. My aunt lives here. We came to help her gather some things, because she doesn't have the conditions to stay anymore. Now, there's no balcony and the windows are blown out.
On the night of February 3rd, Russia used an extremely large number of ballistic missiles, which significantly complicated the work of air defense, emphasized the head of the communications department of the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Yuri Ihnat. According to him, the data from the sites is still being clarified. After an attack, it's not easy to put all the pieces together right away. This time, Russia used the tactic of simultaneous strikes on many regions, instead of focusing on a single direction.
A whole lot of ballistic missiles this time. We're talking about missiles that fly along a ballistic trajectory. That's exactly why, out of more than 70 missiles, only 38 were shot down. But considering the type of missiles, that's still a high rate. Yuri Ihnat, head of the Communications Department of the Armed Forces Command of the AFU, speaking live on the United News Marathon.
By resuming strikes on Ukraine's critical infrastructure, Russia broke the so-called energy truce that had been declared just 4 days earlier. According to authorities, after the Russian army's strikes on Kyiv, many districts of the capital lost heating and electricity. More than 1,000 buildings are without heating. At the same time, Kyiv is experiencing record low temperatures of around -20 degrees Celsius. The most difficult situation is on the left bank in 2 districts of the capital. All necessary services are continuing restoration work, reported Alexei Kuleba, Minister for Communities and Territories Development. Resilience centers are operating in the city, where people can warm up and charge their devices.
This was a targeted strike against the energy sector and involved a record number of ballistic missiles. In fact, the Russian army took advantage of the American proposal to put strikes on a short-term pause, not to support diplomacy, but simply to stockpile missiles and wait the coldest days of the year, when temperatures in much of Ukraine drop to minus 20 degrees Celsius and below. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, president of Ukraine, on the social network X.
Due to Russia's attack on Kyiv, the Hall of Fame at the National Museum of the History of Ukraine in the Second World War was damaged. It is located in the heart of Kyiv, at the foot of the Motherland Monument. According to Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister for Humanitarian Policy, Tatiana Berezhna, the attack is especially cynical and symbolic since the aggressor country, Russia, struck a place that preserves the memory of the fight against aggression in the 20th century. In fact, repeating these crimes already in the 21st century. Kristina Dombrovska for Freedom TV Channel.
The main targets of the Russian army strikes were energy infrastructure facilities in 8 regions of Ukraine. This was reported by Energy Minister Denis Shmyhal. The attacked thermal power plants and stations in Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Dnipro were operating solely for heating purposes.
The targets were not military, only civilian. Hundreds of thousands of families, including children, were deliberately left without heat during the harshest winter frosts when the temperature dropped to minus 25 degrees Celsius. Every Russian involved in planning, supporting, and carrying out these strikes, which were aimed at the mass destruction of Ukrainians, must be held accountable. Denise S.H. Myhal, Ukraine's Minister of Energy, on Telegram.
Every such strike by Russia confirms that Moscow's attitude has not changed. They are still counting on war, the destruction of Ukraine, and absolutely do not take diplomacy seriously there. This is how Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy responded to Russia's strike on Ukrainian settlements. He noted that after today's shelling, the work of the Ukrainian negotiating team in Abu Dhabi will be adjusted. He also said that the strike very clearly demonstrates what is needed from partners and how they can help. The priority is the timely delivery of missiles for air defense systems and pressure on Russia, without which, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is convinced, this war will not end. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine will create new air defense units. It will also implement artificial intelligence into the control system of interceptor drones to protect critical infrastructure. This was reported by Chief of the General Staff Andriy Ignatov following a meeting on strengthening energy facilities with air defense and electronic warfare systems. He noted that the enemy is constantly upgrading its aerial attack capabilities and changing tactics, which requires continuous improvement, strengthening of Ukraine's air defense shield, and the introduction of innovations.
Given that the Russian aggressor, in defiance of international humanitarian law, continues to deliberately strike critical infrastructure, one of the priority areas has been identified as strengthening their protection with air defense and electronic warfare systems. First and foremost, this concerns energy sector facilities. New air defense units have been formed and continue to be established within the armed forces of Ukraine. Army aviation is actively being used to combat attack drones. The number of helicopters involved in air defense missions is increasing. New arrivals are being equipped with modern systems for detecting and engaging aerial targets. Andriy Ignatov, Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Facebook.
Defense Force units delivered fire strikes against a number of Russian occupiers' military targets. In particular, in the temporarily occupied territory of Zaporizhia region near the village of Kamysh-Zarya, a target was hit. It was an enemy pilot training center and FPV drone production facility. Special Operations Forces units also struck an ammunition depot, an enemy personnel location in Zeleny High. And in the Tokmak area, Special Operations Forces struck a drone maintenance point and a Russian electronic warfare station. The total losses of the Russian army since the start of the full-scale war against Ukraine have already exceeded 1,242,000 personnel. Just in the past day, Defense Forces eliminated another 760 Russian occupiers. In addition, over the past day, 6 tanks, 4 armored vehicles, 53 artillery systems, air defense assets, as well as 150 units of enemy automotive and special equipment were destroyed. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen plans to visit Kyiv on the 4th anniversary of the full-scale Russian invasion, February 24th. at the invitation of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. This was announced at a briefing in Brussels by the chief spokesperson of the European Commission, Paula Pinho. The details of the visit haven't yet been disclosed.
President von der Leyen has accepted the invitation to visit Ukraine on the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. This will serve as yet another confirmation of the European Union's solidarity with Ukraine, as well as our determination and unity in the face of Russia's ongoing aggression. We are discussing the details, and we'll share them with you as soon as we have more information about this. Yivet!